Hey y'all, welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. My name is Tanner Clark. I went from sitting at a desk to speaking on stage internationally to inspire teenagers and people like you. My goal is simple: help you find your 1 second of strength to walk away from the things that are holding you back, to step into your potential, and ultimately find happiness. Thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me today. Let's go. Welcome to today's episode. We are going to talk about all things comparison today. I think that we hear a lot about comparison in today's world, and honestly, I think that sometimes comparison gets a little bit of a bad rap, but not always. Sometimes I think comparison can be really, really bad. And so today I want to talk about comparison. I hope it helps you. I hope that you can take what we talk about today. I hope it will accelerate your life. I hope you'll be able to walk away from certain things in your life and ultimately help you reach your potential, help you become better, because that's what this is all about. We want to help you get to where you want to go and remove all of the obstacles and all the barriers that are truly standing in your way right now. So there's really two things that happen from comparison. The first is comparison can lead to pain. It can lead to hurt. It can lead to heartache, self-doubt, all of these things. The other side of comparison is it can lead to truly happiness. It can lead to growth. And so we need to start recognizing in our lives which types of comparison we are having, and then take all of the steps that we need to take to progress. And I think that too often we let these little things come in between us and where we want to go. So we're gonna talk all about that today. I hope it helps you. And I want you to recognize that when we find things that we can compare to that lead to growth, I want you to lean into those things. I want you to grab hold of them, and I want you to step further into them. So again, we hear the word comparison, we hear it all the time, and we just think that comparison is bad. And that's just not always the case. Now, you'll hear things. Teddy Roosevelt is credited, I don't know if he said it or not, but he's credited with saying that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that comparison absolutely can be the thief of joy. But we're going to talk about that today, and we're not going to let that happen in your life anymore. A research study in 2008, so long ago, feels like eons ago, but in 2008 said that 12% of your daily thoughts are comparison. And that might be that we're comparing to other people. It might be that we are comparing to our past. It might be comparing to, who knows, a whole bunch of different things. But 12% of those thoughts, and this was 2008, remind you. So in 2008, just to kind of flash back on the world, Instagram didn't exist. Facebook was released to the world in 2006. So launched in 2004, Mark Zuckerberg, and then 2006 he released it for the general public. That was 2006. The like button wasn't published until 2009. So when we talk about comparison in 2008 being 12% of our daily thoughts, I want you to recognize that that was before real social media. And so if we think about now, I'm guessing, and I don't know where the number is. I'd love to see an updated research study, but I don't know where the number is. But our daily thoughts of comparison have to be way more than 12%. So the question is, I don't know where that is, but you should recognize in your life how often you are comparing. The other thing I want you to realize with those statistics, 12% of your thoughts being comparison or more, now that social media and Instagram, all these things are here. But if it's that much, or if it was that much, then I want you to recognize that comparison is normal. It's a part of our natural ability to process. It's part of of who we are. So let's not demonize comparison in a way that it's always bad, because it is totally natural. It's natural for you to compare. So now, what you do with comparison, that's not normal. Everybody gets to process comparison in a different way, and you get to react and control what you're going to do, if you're going to let it impact you, if you're going to let it help you grow, or if you're going to let it become debilitating to you. You get to decide what you're going to do with comparison and how it's going to help you or hurt you, and that is 100% in your control. So we can't always control our thoughts. We can't always control what we're thinking, but you can always control what you do with it and what your next step is. So let's remember that as we go through this, that you get to control that, and you get to control the narrative in your life, and you get to become the person that you want to become. And part of that is controlling these thoughts. And some of these thoughts are just comparison, and that is completely natural. So on the good side of comparison, it's growth. It's going to help us grow. And this is when we see something out there and we base our expectations on achievable results. When we base comparison, when we compare to something and we base it in achievable results, that's where we can look to the path, we can look towards our potential, and we can start taking these steps to get there so that we can grow into the person that we want to become. So that is the good type of comparison. So think about somebody you admire. Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's somebody that you respect. Think about that person, and then think about the steps and the process that you can become closer to that ideal or those things. And that's okay. Those are the types of things, because that is what's going to help you and make you help you be better. So, and then we tie actions to those steps. We put steps towards those things so that we can really become or start to become more like or attain some of those positive attributes of the people that we admire. And that's what we want to do. So there's a saying that says success leaves clues. You may have heard that, you may not. But what that means is that people that are successful, people that you admire, people that are mentoring you, those people are leaving tips on how to achieve greatness. And you can follow in their footsteps, compare yourself to them, and follow in their footsteps to step closer to the potential and the things that you want to achieve. That is totally normal. That is totally okay. And that is what we want to do. Because I think if we look at our life and we think about all the things that we have going on, sometimes it can be a little bit debilitating. And this gets into the negative side, but then we start comparing to the things that we can't achieve or that are too difficult or way outside of our realm of possibility. And that's where the negative criticism starts to impact us. And so we want to follow the clues that successful people are leaving. We can admire those people. We can take steps to be like those people. We can even compare ourselves to those people, but we have to take those necessary steps to get there, because where you are now and where you want to be, there is a gap, and progress is the only way to jump from here to here. There is no other way other than taking daily steps to get there. And so it is not fair to be frustrated or upset comparing yourself to other people if you are not willing to do the work to get to become closer to that person or to those attributes. I'm going to say that again because I think it's really important. It is not fair for you to compare yourself to other people if you are not going to take the time, the effort, the energy, put in the work to take steps to be like that person or be successful like that person. It's not always to be like them. It's about being successful or whatever that may be. So we've got to take those steps, and we have to recognize in our lives that if we're not willing to do that, then it's just completely unfair for us to be upset and compare our lives to them. I hope that you recognize that. Because the other side of this is negative comparison, right? So we've got the good comparison that leads to growth, and we've got the bad comparison that leads to it's really the more common type of comparison. It's what you think about when you think of comparison, or what they say when they refer to comparison being the thief of joy. It's this type of comparison that does that. And so this is when we knock ourselves down and we beat ourselves up because we don't have what other people have, or we aren't like other people, or we're not as successful as other people. We knock ourselves down and we beat ourselves up because of the deficiency or the gap that is between us. And then we're not willing to take those steps to close that gap. That is the negative type of comparison that you may be feeling in your life. You might feel right now towards certain people, towards certain things, towards certain goals, towards certain dreams. And so again, it's normal to feel those things, but it's not okay to let it control us and make us unhappy and make us sad. That's where we need to step in, recognize what's going on, and overcome those things in our life, because that's how we get better. So, what it really comes down to, I don't know if you remember when you were little, and maybe you do this in your house right now, but when I was little, we used to have a door frame, and on the door frame, we would stand our back to the door frame, and my mom or my dad would mark how tall we were getting, right? And so you could see and you could measure the growth in your life based on those marks on the wall, which was a form of comparison, right? So I am comparing myself to 3 weeks ago in my growth spurt, and I'm seeing that I grew a centimeter, a quarter of an inch, 2 inches, right? You see that growth. We are comparing and we see how that works. What is unfair is if I'm the older brother in my family. So it's unfair if my younger brother looks at his mark and then compares himself to me and then gets upset because he's not as tall as I am. You can just logically look at that and go, yeah, that makes no sense. Why would you ever be frustrated and upset at that? Well, you wouldn't be. You shouldn't be. You can't be, because other people are where they're at because of either who they are or the work they've put in, and we can't compare our journey to them. Just like we can't compare a mark on a wall to somebody else and get frustrated that we're not as tall as them, because we can't control that. I can't control that I'm taller than my brother. He's taller than me now, but I can't control at the time that I was taller than him. He can't get frustrated about that. So we've got to be careful, because at the end of the day, it's your journey. It's not their journey. It's your journey, and you get to walk the walk, and you get to talk the talk and put forth the actions and do those things to get to where you want to be. And again, aspire to be people. Don't beat yourself up because you're not them. That doesn't make sense. So, and I think when we look at the invention of social media, this is where it gets really, really dangerous as far as comparison. Again, 12% of our thoughts in 2008 led to comparison. That number is way higher now, and social media is leading to that. And so we have to take a look at our habits and what we're consuming on social media, and recognize in our heart if it is helping us or hurting us. And then we have to be willing to walk away from that. And I think one of the challenges is that we get in this feedback, almost this instantaneous feedback loop cycle on social media that is damaging to who we are. And I think what happens is we let it change us. We let it dictate who we are and who we can become, because we start looking for likes and views and acceptance rather than growth and stepping into our potential. It's all about the likes. We did it all for the gram, right? Like that's what's happening, and it's not right for us to do that. And we have to check that right now, because social media is not going anywhere. It's not going to get any better. And these features on these apps are going to keep putting us in a position to compare ourselves to other people. And so what happens then is we change who we are for others. And it goes like this, right? So I might post on social media, and I don't get as many views or as many likes as somebody else who posted on social media. And then I get frustrated on that, because I put in the work, I put in the time, I did all the things, and then I'm frustrated because I'm not as, quote unquote, successful as somebody else who posted very similar content. And so what happens then is we start seeking likes and we start seeking acceptance. So you might change your content or change who you are because of the comparison to other people. And that is not what we need to do, because you're losing authenticity when you change who you are to try and be like somebody else in that way. And remember that the people in your life who you need in your life are going to be attracted to you for you, not for you because you are trying to be like somebody else. That is not our goal, right? Our goal is to be us, be authentically us, whether we get 1 like, whether we get 1,000 likes, whatever it may be authentically you, be true to you, and you'll attract the right people in your life. But here's what happens. We post on social media, it doesn't get the likes that we want, so then we adjust our content to try and get more. And you'll see this a lot, if you notice on social media, for teenagers this happens a lot, where they adjust their content. And maybe it's for teenage girls or girls in general. You don't have to be a teenager, where now maybe you'll show a little bit more skin, post something a little bit more risque, because you'll know that drives a like, and you'll know that drives a view. And so you get further and further into this endless loop of likes and views and acceptance. And you keep changing who you are or lowering your standards because of comparison. And there's nothing more dangerous to our society than that. And the risk of it is because we don't decide what gets likes and views. It has nothing to do really with your content. It has everything to do with an algorithm. And so we can't put our happiness in the control of something that we literally cannot control. And when we compare ourselves to other people on social media and change who we are because of that, we are running the immediate danger of doing that in our lives. And I hope that makes sense to you. And I hope that you put an end to changing who you are because of comparison in that way. A flower doesn't compare itself to other flowers. It just blooms. I love that quote. I don't know who wrote it, but a flower doesn't compare itself to other flowers. It just blooms. And that is what we want to accomplish. So don't compare yourself to other people on social media. It is natural to do that, but just bloom. Bloom where you stand. Be who you are. Be true to who you are and authentic to who you are. And it will literally change your life. Because when we stop comparing ourselves to other people, we're happier. I always say that you can't compare yourself to faux happiness on social media, because the only result is your very real unhappiness. So a couple of things to really help us, and just to kind of give you some thoughts that will help you know which direction you need to go, what type of comparison you're looking at. And the very first one is recognize in your life when you are setting unrealistic standards for yourself. So you'll compare yourself to somebody, maybe a mentor, maybe someone on Instagram, maybe someone in real life, but you'll compare yourself to them, and recognize if you are setting an unrealistic standard for yourself. And that doesn't mean that you can't get to that goal, that level of success, that level of whatever it is. It just might mean that you can't get to that level of success today. We have to put in the work, put in the time, baby steps to grow to get to where you want to go. And so if you compare yourself, in this gap, we talk about the gap. If you are starting at where you're starting, which could be at the very bottom of your journey, it could be at the very beginning, it could be somewhere in the middle of your journey, but we're going to compare ourselves to somebody who is much further along in our journey. But if we are unhappy because we're not where they are, recognizing that they have put in years of work to get there, then that's not fair. So we need to recognize when we are doing that in our lives. One of my favorite things to do, and I've done this with certain people, of like Rachel Hollis, who is an author, has done many different things, but you can do it with almost any person on social media that you aspire to be. I want you to scroll back down their feed, not to like last week, but I want you to keep scrolling down to like last year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years ago. And I want you to see that they started 5 years ago, 6 years ago, exactly where you are starting. The difference is that they didn't quit. So don't quit. Keep going. Take those baby steps and recognize that you will get there if you take those baby steps to get there. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself, as you're comparing, what is the goal of this comparison? And that should be a very fine defining line between, is it growth oriented or is it pain oriented? Is it going to help me step into my potential and become the person that I want to become, or is it going to hurt me more? And in that moment, if it is about growth, then I want you to literally write down the steps that you can take to grow into that potential. And it might be, that you need to take cooking classes. It might be that you need to take some online course. It might mean that you need to walk away from something. It could be any number of things that, as you write that down, if it is a path towards growth, comparison towards growth, then write down what that is and start taking those steps. Always take the very next best step to get to where you want to go. You can't run before you walk. You have to start somewhere. So recognize that in your life. Recognize and ask yourself the question, what is the goal of this comparison? On the flip side of that, if the goal of the comparison starts to be just, man, I just feel worse about myself, then that's where we need to step in and make some significant changes in our lives. And you can do that. And this next piece of that is really that. So when you recognize that the comparison that you are doing with somebody else is negative in nature, it's time to walk away. Just plain and simple, you need to walk away from whatever that is. So I'll give you an example. I've never been big on like New Year's resolutions. I literally in my life, I don't know that I've ever really done a New Year's resolution. I just kind of keep going and keep going. But 2 years ago, I found myself really in kind of a comparison trap. I found myself really struggling with where I was at, growing, getting to where I wanted to be. And so I came up with a word. You'll see this sometimes in New Year's resolutions or around New Year's, that I came up with a word that I wanted to help me for the next year. And the word was blinders. And that might sound like a funny word to you, but to me, it was really significant. And to this day, I think about it. 2 years later, I think about that word and how it impacts my life. And so I want you to think about blinders. If you've ever seen a horse pulling like a carriage or something like that, they put on literal blinders right across their face. And they do that so that they look ahead and they don't look to the side. So they don't get spooked, so they don't get startled, so they don't get off track. And that is exactly what I wanted to have happen in my life. I wanted to focus on me and my journey and how I could get to where I needed to be to reach my full potential without looking at anybody else's path to progress, path to their full potential, and then questioning why I wasn't reaching their potential, if that makes sense. And so I made this word, blinders, and that was my word of the year. And again, to this day, it continues to help me. And so if you are having negative comparison in your life, I want you to put the blinders on. I want you to start looking forward at your path and only your path, and walk away from anything else or any other account or any other thing in your life that you're comparing yourself to that is causing that negative form of comparison. I always say that when you find your 1 second of strength and walk away from the things that are hurting your heart, walk away from comparison, the very next second will be the best second of your life. And you will in that moment immediately feel freedom. And that's what you want to do. You want to be free to pursue your dreams and your passions at your pace without worrying about anybody else and the comparison that's happening there. So take the moment today to walk away from the things. Find your 1 second of strength to do that. That is why this podcast is called 1 Second of Strength, so that in all of these episodes, you find a little nugget where you can find a second of strength to do the thing you need to do to improve your life. And it could be walking away from something. On social media, it's really simple. This looks like unfollow somebody, block somebody, mute somebody. It's my favorite button is the mute button, because I can mute anybody on social media. It doesn't mean I've stopped following them, but I never have to see their stuff or their content again. And when I put on my blinders in my life, that is the first thing I did. I went to nearly every account that I follow and I muted them so that I don't ever see their content, because I don't have time to compare myself to other people when I have to focus on being better myself. And so find your 1 second of strength and walk away from the things you're comparing yourself to, the things that are hurting your heart. And the very next second will be the best second of your life. And then, and one more thing is you can always delete social media altogether. If it is really impacting you on the level that it might be impacting you, then find that courage, find that moment, and simply let it go. So I hope this helped you. I hope that you're able to notice the difference, recognize that comparison is completely normal. It happens to everyone many times a day, 12% of our thoughts or more, and recognize that you get to choose which path of comparison you follow, the path of growth or the path of pain. And when you decide in your life to walk away from the pain and walk towards the growth, you will literally change who you are and transform and begin to transform into the person that you can become. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it helped you. And if it did, please share it on your social accounts so that we can help all of the most important people in your life. Your shares are truly the only way we can reach more people together and start to change this world. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss another episode, and leave a review for the show. And as always, you deserve to be happy. You are worth it. You are more than enough. You are in control of your life, and you have everything inside of you to reach your full potential. So go find your 1 second of strength and be happy.